So I'm starting a little early. Gives me more time to talk and tell my story about Stormbound. And I guess there's also plenty of time for questions afterwards. So usually it's very fast. I'm going to go a little bit slower, I guess, than the other stuff. All right, so live operations for indies. Who's an indie in here? Who develops games on it by themselves? Okay, cool, awesome. So I hope this is going to be useful for you guys. First, a little bit about me and about my company. So I'm the co-founder CEO of Paladin Studios. Our mission is to create games that make you smile. Our office is located in The Hague in the Netherlands. It's nice and green, and we have all kinds of movable stuff. Right in the back there, you can see the Stormbound team. So, and that's also one of the things I do want to mention before I begin. All credits go to them. I'm only facilitating this whole endeavor, and they are doing all the hard work. So. We work with publishers, quite a lot of them actually. So we've, for Stormbound, we've partnered with Congregate, a publisher from the United States. I'm sure you guys know them. But we've also worked, or are working with Bandai Namco, for example, Kilu, DNA, and a bunch of others. So these are some of the titles that we've recently launched or announced. Momonga Pinball Adventures, this was our first self-published adventure, I guess you could say. Galaga Wars, Katamari Damacy, which was recently launched, and we also, a couple of weeks ago, or a month ago, announced Tamagotchi for mobile. All right, we do a whole bunch more, but I won't go into that too much. I'm going to talk today about a game called Stormbound. Stormbound is a collectible card game where you play cards on the field and you basically have to try to destroy the opponent's base. The units move forward in a lane, and let me just play the trailer to illustrate that. That went smoothly. Nice work for the techies. Yeah, it's a game that's been out since last year, and this is actually our sort of first attempt at creating a sort of a bigger multiplayer mobile game. It started as an internal game jam, so we do those every now and then, and it was originally called Mirage. It went through a lot of iterations, but ultimately we came to a place where Congregate was willing to pick it up, and that was really awesome to see that. I'm going to talk mostly about the live operations part, so I'm not so much going into the development, but I do want to share some highlights, like what are the differences between the development stage and the live operations stage. I think the simple state of the project is sort of dictating the mindset that we needed to adopt. For development, it's very milestone driven. We have the publisher, in this case Congregate, providing us with feedback. We have internal processes for feedback, peer feedback and everything. There's no data, and there's plenty of bugs along the way and everything. So that's the status, and that's okay. Live operations is way different. We're not going to talk about milestones anymore. We're going to talk about releases and release dates. The community is providing feedback. They're going to interact with us. There's a lot of data, and there's zero tolerance for any bugs whatsoever. And believe me, we've had a lot of bugs, and they are very painful. So in terms of team size or composition, the the team composition is actually pretty similar. We try to keep the team, the core team, intact throughout the live operations phase. The simple reason for that is that if you have the people that sort of envisioned and built this product from the start, then these are also the people that know it most intimately. So we're really trying to keep that core intact. The big difference is that the team is smaller. So while in development phase we might peak at 15 people, we actually sometimes go beyond that, but that's not preferred. In live ops, it's usually between 4 and 8 people on average. And of course, that heavily depends on the success of the product. If the game is wildly successful, obviously, then maybe you will grow it even bigger than the original development team. But in most cases, just keeping that stable team together is the most important part. This is actually the heart of this whole talk. The mindset for live operations is just different. When you're in development, you are going by gut feeling. We really have this creative vibe in the company that's all about making the best game ever and really pursuing crazy ideas. The cool features are all over the place. And then, of course, stakeholders, both the publishers that we work with, but also internal stakeholders like myself, they all want stuff yesterday, as you know, and the team has to figure out how to best serve those stakeholders or deal with those stakeholders, depending on your point of view. There's a lot of milestones. It doesn't matter if the game is super stable for those milestones. We're just going to try to squeeze as much features and content into those milestones as possible, and really keep up the pace of development. There's also not a lot of quality assurance, and we have those crazy creative people. And with live operations, everything is different. So it really flips itself on the head. We're now dealing with a game that's out there. The data comes pouring in. That's impossible to ignore because those are the facts. This is how players actually engage with your game. And if you don't have the data to tell you that, or if you don't look at the data, then the community will really tell you what they think and what they want. So it's all about improving the game. It's all about figuring out the features that are most needed and how to serve those players. The biggest difference of everything is the question of updates and quality assurance cycles. How fast can we do QA? How fast can we push those updates? The faster, the better. So this is always a challenge to deal with. And instead of crazy creative people, you actually need very careful people that are conscientious and really are very deliberate in what they're doing. These could be the same people, by the way. It's just that it requires a different mindset. It's not for everybody, but most people will be capable of doing both. So, first tactic or I guess tip or strategy that we use is we want to ensure regular updates. If the game is live, there's a really strong pressure to create a lot of content or features and really push the game forward. The problem is that if you make the updates too big, it could take weeks and weeks before they get pushed. And in my opinion, it's better to have a lot of small regular updates than a couple of big ones. There's this debate, there's a little bit of friction between the notion that big updates have a better chance of getting featured. But in my opinion, I think the best way forward is to ensure a steady rhythm so that players can really expect updates on a regular basis. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you have that sort of expectations, those expectations aligned. So the game is running on the server mostly. The client updates take a little bit longer. Server updates, we can just do them on a daily basis if we want to. But we sort of batch those smaller changes and push them live whenever we have a bunch of things going on. But yeah, it's a lot of pressure. And to sort of release the pressure from the team, we basically have this release train approach. The train is leaving in a set date, in this case. Whatever makes it into the train, whatever remains is for the next release. And that's another advantage of having these regular updates. Even if you're working on big features, it doesn't mean that they need to be shipped with every release. You can just push it back for the next release and keep everything stable and keep the people sane. Then the other part is the balancing and the updates. These are minor features or minor changes that we're doing. We could, in theory, do that on an hourly basis, but the community is there as well, and we always have to consider what the impact is going to be on the player base. So what we do is we really look at the data for any balancing changes that we're making, things like win rates, card usage, very important. And at that point, we start to engage with the community. We talk to them, we explain our reasons why the change is coming. If there's big changes coming, we might communicate that weeks in advance. And sort of it gets them already adjusted to the thought that there will be changes along the way, and that those changes might actually have a negative impact. Of course, when we make big changes, we're also giving some rewards to compensate for any lost currency, for example, that they just upgraded this card to a high level, and then we nerf it, and that, I mean, everybody's pissed off, and we don't want that. So this is the kind of stuff we do. So even though the technical work is simple, it's really important to keep that community management in mind. So this is the kind of stuff that we see. I mean, a lot of analysis. The community is a very active one for Stormbound, and we see a lot of really good comments, a lot of really nice suggestions, and a lot of very strong emotions as well around the whole game and the balancing around it. You know, you spend the last 2 months trying to upgrade specific card to level 4. 2 days ago, I get enough, and I spend a bunch of fusion stones, which is sort of a hard currency, to upgrade it. And then we nerf it, right? That sucks. That sucks. It's not a good experience. So that's why we need to be very deliberate with these changes. And then, of course, we add content as well. It's a collectible card game, so that means that we have a lot of opportunity to add more content to the game. And this is really, really nice. If you do this on a regular basis, people love it. It's actually a really good way to keep players engaged. It changes the sort of the meta structure of the community, the gameplay, and yeah, it's in general seen as sort of a gift to the players. I love the Hail Paladin sentiment there. We should get that a little bit more often. But so yeah, and then maybe the biggest one is features. The problem with features is that it's really easy to get into feature creep and just think of all the cool stuff you can do. And the way that's we sort of try to balance that against the real world is that features should be tied to a KPI goal. So, for example, if we say we want to add friends versus friends gameplay, that's a feature that we hope or anticipate will increase retention rates. And based on that goal, you can then hypothesize around what it might need to achieve that goal, and you can then also test it. Another part of that is that we always need to keep in mind the different types of players that are in the game. So new players need to be onboarded. The user experience needs to be good. If we have to explain a lot of difficult rules, then people will drop off very early, and that's never a good thing. But also the veteran players need to have this sort of balancing and engaging sort of end game content, and that needs to be in place as well. So this is a continuous balancing act between new and veteran players. So a small thing we're doing, which has a big impact actually on the team, is that we use appfollow.io with Slack integration. So Slack is our sort of internal communication system. Appfollow.io is basically a monitoring tool that basically pulls all the reviews from the app stores, and it pushes it to Slack. So we have a separate channel for Stormbound News that actually also has Google search and the AppFollow integration. So every day, several times per day, we see the reviews that are popping up. And this allows us to stay in touch with the community and really keep a pulse, but also the issues that are there, they will be in your face on a daily basis until you fix them. So there's a really good sort of incentive to get rid of the negative reviews. I guess that's it for that. Then we engage with the community. So there's several platforms or channels that we use. The primary one is Discord. I'm sure you know it. A very good way to stay in touch. This is really a chat-based system. You can get verified channels with Discord, and it's a really good investment. Then we have a Reddit page, which is also very active, and the Congregate forums, which also have, I would say it's all pretty much equal percentage of players that are on these different channels. I think the key thought with these community interactions is that it needs to be the right balance. If you engage with them too much, you're going to be very cynical at some point. Players can get angry, or they can be trolling. Fortunately, we have an excellent community that actually is almost self-monitoring, and they seem to be intelligent, reasonable human beings, which is not for every game, I think, the case. But yeah, engage with them as much as you can stomach, and just keep in mind that it might get to you at some point, and that's a very slow, subtle process. So be aware of it. And the last point, last 2 points, I didn't invent these, but I forgot who taught me that. But basically, the players know what's wrong with the game, but their suggestions might not be the right solutions. So don't let them be game designers. They're the players. They know exactly what sucks and what's good, but the solutions to the problems they indicate, that has to come from you yourself. I just wanted to share some of the good stuff that's coming out of the community. There's a lot of memes that they create. So, for example, the Ironclad faction is not the strongest one, and this is the quest that's tied to that faction. It's called Recipe for Disaster. Legendary cards are pretty hard to get. So this is where I would put my legendary card if I had one. That's fun. It's good stuff. And yeah, it's just great to see people sharing their strategies and their deck builds and everything. We also get a lot of fan art, and I was surprised at this. It's such a nice, I guess it's an indication that people are really into the game. And the fan art is all over the place in terms of the quality. This is fan art as well. I mean, it's almost, I would say, almost better than we could have created, or at least it's a professional level of fan art. And it's this kind of stuff that really made me realize that, wow, if we're doing these kind of games, that's the way forward for us. And for these people, that's why you're doing live ops, right? To keep these people into the game, make sure they keep their hobby alive, and keep them engaged. The wiki is also community managed, so we're amazed at the quality level that they got out, and it's really something that we sort of hoped for, but it's just there. If you create a game that sort of has this emergent gameplay in it, I think that's just a really good, good starting point for this kind of community participation, I would say. I want to start wrapping up. So data analysis. This talk is not about data analysis, but we use a bunch of tools for it. There's several sources that are funneled into Periscope and that visualizes the data. In general, we don't have a full-time data analyst on the team, but we do the minimum data analysis that we need to keep going. My impression of that is that it's very useful to make decisions like card balancing. If you look at win rates for those cards, then it really gives you a good reasoning to take certain actions. And the funny thing is that it's pretty rare that we sort of spot something from the data, get new intel from the data that we sort of didn't already know. So it's mostly a sanity check that we use it for. I'm sure there's people that will strongly disagree with me on this point, but that's just how we use it. And I can imagine that for most indies, that's how you're going to be engaging with data. And that's fine, right? It's just okay. Customer support. Kongregate is doing an excellent job at this. What they did is they are super active on the forums and social channels. They respond to reviews. They have the Zendesk page set up. So there's a lot of frequently asked questions and everything. And we are in constant communication with them through our shared Slack channel. And on our end, we actually have custom-built admin tools that allow Kongregate and ourselves to really make changes to the game. So this is another point where it really helps to, first of all, work with the publisher, but also have the server-side setup done well. So the big question, of course, for me, and I can imagine for you guys as well, is that, is this worth it, right? All these feature changes, all the effort that's going into the game, is that actually paying off? Well, I did a rough analysis of that, and I think it is. What you see here is the iPhone US top grossing ranking for Stormbound in the games category. And same for Android, by the way, which is a lot more flat. But especially on iOS, you can see for each update that we did, sort of major client update, you actually see a pretty big spike in terms of the top grossing ranks. And if we sort of do a little bit guesswork, like, okay, this is how I use data, it's sort of intuitive mathematics, I guess. This is the trend line we're seeing with the live operations. If you would have taken away those spikes, then I think you would have seen a curve similar to that. So this difference between these two curves is the difference between live ops and no live ops. For me, that's a significant sort of flat line, especially because this is basically effectively bumping our long tail, and that might last for years. So it's an investment, but it's worth it, I would say. All right, so quickly some takeaways. I think we have some time left, right? 2 minutes, okay. Serve your community, super important. Engage with them, talk to them, explain, ask questions. It's sort of the mindset of a party host, like you need to, or maybe a DJ or something, you need to feel the crowd and really understand what's next for them. What are they going to appreciate? And an obvious one, but still, social elements in the game, features like friend play is really important for the longevity of the game. We have a bunch of things we can still improve. We want to sort of start addressing issues before the complaints are happening. a little bit more data focused, like A/B testing, deep dives into the data to figure out the onboarding process, for example, things like that. Social features and community, get that integrated from the start. The QA process internally, we can definitely improve that. And the focus on stability should be sort of a mindset thing that's across the team. Onboarding, UX, and simply that live operations, events, that mindset from the onset. As early as possible, we want to switch the mindset to the live ops mindset. And the main takeaway is basically do it or don't, but not half-heartedly, not a little bit. I would really recommend to stay sharp on that and make sure that your team is capable and willing actually to do serious live operations. And that's my talk. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I remember when we went live ops with PlayStation Home, and it was like this amazing kind of transition. And like you say, it's often the same core people,
yeah,
but a lot different in terms of the mindset. And like you say, the unforgiving nature of players. I don't know if anyone remembers PlayStation Home, but when we launched, there was this expectation we'd have trophy rooms and 3D stuff that never went away, even after like 7 or 8 years or whatever of it existing. Thank you very much.
Most welcome.
And thanks for saving me. So.